Living alone in old age can feel like stepping into a new, uncharted chapter of life, one that offers quiet reflection, unexpected challenges, and above all, opportunities for personal growth and fulfillment. Far from being isolating, this stage can be deeply empowering and enriching. Having embraced this phase myself, I've seen how living alone in later years can shape us in profound ways we might not have anticipated. I've come across countless stories shared in forums and conversations by others who have navigated this path, and their voices echo similar transformations. Here's how living alone often changes us as we grow older, and how these shifts can bring more depth and meaning to our lives. But before we dive in, like this video, and if you're new here, hit the subscribe button for more in-depth Stoic wisdom, and leave a comment saying, "Yes, I subscribed," so we can welcome you personally. 1. Reconnecting with ourselves. One of the most powerful changes I've observed is how solitude gives us the space to reconnect with our inner selves. Without the constant distractions of daily life, we begin to rediscover who we are at our core. Take Beatrice, for example, a 65-year-old woman who shared her experience on Reddit. After her husband passed away, she moved into a small apartment, uncertain of what the future held. For the first time in years, she had no one to care for, no one to share the daily routines with. Initially, the silence was overwhelming, but gradually, Beatrice began to rediscover her old passions, like gardening. What started as a few herbs on her windowsill blossomed into a balcony filled with greenery. Beatrice's story reminds us that being alone doesn't have to mean being lonely. It can be an opportunity to reconnect with the things that bring us joy. Now, when Beatrice sits down with a cup of tea and gazes at her thriving plants, she feels a sense of peace that had eluded her for years. 2. Developing new routines and rituals. Living alone invites us to create a daily rhythm that caters to our own needs, often leading to new routines or rituals that are uniquely ours. Many people share how they've developed morning rituals that bring them joy and comfort. For instance, Frank, a retired engineer, commented in an online video about how living alone allowed him to slow down and structure his days differently. After decades of waking up at 5 a.m. for work, he finally indulged in the luxury of sleeping in. Now, his mornings are slow and deliberate. He enjoys his coffee while leisurely reading the newspaper, something he never had time for before. Frank even started a new tradition of taking a 20-minute walk around his neighborhood each afternoon. This new routine gave his days a sense of rhythm and purpose. He remarked, "When you live alone, your time is truly your own. You're not rushing for anyone, and there's something incredibly satisfying about that." Another beautiful example comes from Lillian, a widow in her early 70s. She transformed her evenings by creating a calming ritual, ending each night with a candlelit bath and a good book. This small act of self-care turned what could have been lonely evenings into moments of peace and reflection. Her personal routine became a source of comfort, helping her embrace the calm that solitude brings. In conclusion, living alone in old age isn't just about facing solitude. It's about rediscovering who we are, forming new habits that nourish us, and embracing the freedom to shape our days as we wish. The stories of Margaret, John, Lillian, and many others show that this chapter of life can be filled with growth, joy, and a sense of purpose. Through small daily rituals, we can transform our experiences and find meaning in our solitude. 3. Embracing self-reliance. Living alone naturally fosters a deep sense of self-reliance, both practically and emotionally. Suddenly, you're the one responsible for every aspect of your life, from grocery shopping to home maintenance to making health decisions. For many, this can feel overwhelming, but it also brings a tremendous sense of accomplishment and personal growth. Take Morris, for example, who found himself living alone at 68 after his wife passed away. In an online forum, Morris shared his journey, expressing how daunting it was to face even the simplest tasks like cooking and maintaining his home, tasks his wife had always handled. He'd never cooked more than a basic breakfast of toast and eggs. But with no choice but to fend for himself, Morris turned to YouTube, where he found simple cooking tutorials. His first success? A humble pasta dish, which he proudly shared with his online community. Although he joked that it was far from gourmet, he relished the fact that he had made it on his own. Over time, his cooking skills improved, and now Morris experiments with recipes from around the world, often joking that his late wife would be amazed by his newfound culinary abilities. This journey of self-reliance gave Morris a sense of confidence and pride he hadn't felt before. Then there's Gladys, who had never paid much attention to home maintenance. But after moving into a small house on her own, she had to learn quickly. Online forums became her go-to, where she learned to unclog sinks, change light fixtures, and even build her own bookshelves. Gladys shared that while the learning curve was steep, the deep sense of pride and self-sufficiency she gained was priceless. "I never thought I'd be the handy one," she wrote, "but now I realize I'm far stronger and more capable than I ever gave myself credit for." 4. Rediscovering old hobbies and exploring new interests. One of the unexpected gifts of living alone is the opportunity to indulge in hobbies, both old ones that you may have set aside and new ones you've never had the chance to explore. Without the distractions of a bustling household, you can dive into what truly excites you. Carol, in her mid-70s, shared her story of rediscovering her love for painting. She hadn't touched a paintbrush in over 40 years, but after retiring and finding herself living alone, Carol felt a deep longing for something creative to fill her time. In a heartfelt post, she described how she began attending local art classes again, surrounded by people half her age. But it didn't bother her. Carol had found her passion once more. Before long, she transformed a small corner of her living room into a mini art studio, and now her walls are adorned with her own vibrant paintings. For Carol, painting became her therapy, a way to express herself and reconnect with her younger, more creative self. Her story is a beautiful reminder that it's never too late to reignite old passions. Similarly, Bill, a 72-year-old living alone in Florida, discovered an unexpected hobby: bird watching. After his wife passed away, Bill often struggled with grief and restlessness. One afternoon, while sitting in his backyard, he began to notice the variety of birds visiting his garden. Intrigued, he started keeping a journal of the species he observed, eventually buying a pair of binoculars to get a closer look. Bill found solace in birdwatching, writing that it helped him heal. "I realize that life continues in the smallest, most beautiful ways, even when we think it's standing still," he said. Bill's story reminds us that sometimes the simplest activities can offer profound comfort and a renewed sense of purpose during difficult times. But before we dive deeper, can I ask a quick favor? If you found what you're hearing insightful, show us some love by hitting that like button. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and ring that bell for our latest update. Oh, and one more thing, drop a quick "yes, I subscribe" down in the comments, and I'll be sure to give you a warm welcome to our awesome family. All right, enough of that. Let's keep the conversation rolling. 5. Cultivating deeper connections on your own terms. Living alone doesn't equate to isolation. In fact, many find that it enhances the quality of their social interactions. When you live alone, you have the freedom to choose who you spend your time with, and this often leads to more intentional and fulfilling relationships. Without the constant demands of sharing space, you gain the energy and clarity to focus on the people who truly enrich your life. Doris, a woman in her late 60s, shared how living alone has actually strengthened her relationships with her children and friends. With no one else to care for, Doris began making more time for intentional phone calls and relaxed coffee dates. She said that her relationship with her daughter had never been better, because now their conversations are deeper and more meaningful, uninterrupted by the usual chaos of daily life. James, a retired schoolteacher and introvert, also found that living alone gave him a new perspective on social connections. Previously, he hadn't realized how much he valued meaningful interactions with a few close friends. Now, he organizes weekly game nights with friends he met at a local senior center, and these gatherings have become the highlight of his week. James cherishes the laughter, companionship, and joy these interactions bring, reminding us that living alone doesn't mean withdrawing from the world. It can be a way to nurture stronger, more rewarding relationships on your own terms. 6. Embracing solitude and finding comfort in stillness. When living alone, especially in old age, the fear of loneliness can often loom large. Yet as many have discovered, including myself, there's a profound difference between loneliness and solitude. Solitude, when embraced, can be incredibly serene, offering moments of deep reflection, self-care, and personal peace. Anna, a widow, shared her poignant journey through the pain of loneliness after her husband's passing. In the beginning, the silence in her home was suffocating, an unbearable reminder of her loss. But with time, she began to see the quiet not as a void, but as a companion. She found solace in the simplest of rituals, sitting by her window each evening, watching the sunset with a cup of tea. This daily act, she explained, became her form of meditation, grounding her in the beauty of stillness. Anna's experience highlights the importance of distinguishing between being alone and feeling lonely. While loneliness may still occasionally creep in, she learned to combat it by connecting with loved ones, taking peaceful walks, or volunteering at her local library. Her story reminds us that while loneliness is a natural part of the journey, it doesn't have to define us. Instead, we can find comfort and even strength in the solitude that life offers. 7. Creating a space that reflects your true self. Living alone opens the door to a special kind of freedom, one where your home becomes a direct reflection of who you are, an extension of your inner world. Many people find this stage in life offers a unique opportunity to craft a living space that truly speaks to them, whether through personal decor, rearranging furniture for ultimate comfort, or simply surrounding themselves with what brings them joy. For the first time, you get to shape your environment entirely on your own terms. Take Brown, for example, a man in his 60s who, after his divorce, found himself in a small apartment with a blank canvas. Brown had never been much for decorating during his marriage, but now, living alone, he realized the joy of making his space truly his own. He adorned his walls with vintage movie posters and filled his bookshelves with beloved classics, transforming his home into a sanctuary that reflected his passions and personality. As he put it, his space became 100% me. Similarly, Stella, a retired nurse, had always dreamed of filling her home with vibrant colors that made her feel alive, hues like yellow and teal that her husband had never cared for. After his passing, she finally allowed herself the freedom to redecorate in a way that brought her true happiness. For the first time, Stella said, she felt like she was living in a space that was truly and authentically hers. 8. Practicing mindfulness and gratitude. Living alone naturally brings a heightened awareness to the present moment, allowing for more mindful living and reflection. With fewer distractions, many older adults find themselves engaging in mindfulness practices without even realizing it. Helena, a woman in her late 70s, shared in an online video how moving into a small cottage by herself changed her relationship with time and presence. She began to savor her meals more, enjoying each bite instead of rushing through them as she once did when cooking for her family. Simple tasks like watering her plants or folding laundry became meditative acts, grounding her in the now. Similarly, Andrew, a retired teacher, found a powerful tool in his newfound solitude, a gratitude journal. Every evening he would write down 3 things he was grateful for, whether it was the birds chirping outside his window, a kind word from a neighbor, or just the peace of a quiet afternoon. This practice, he said, shifted his mindset from dwelling on loneliness to focusing on the abundance of small, beautiful moments that made his days richer. Helen and Andrew's stories demonstrate how living alone can create a space for deep reflection, helping us appreciate the quieter, simpler moments of life that we might otherwise overlook. 9. Taking charge of health and well-being. Living alone can be a powerful catalyst for taking control of your health, both physical and mental. With no one else to rely on for reminders or support, it often falls to you to ensure that your well-being becomes a priority. George, a 69-year-old man, shared his inspiring journey on a health-focused forum. After finding himself living alone, George quickly realized that his health was his sole responsibility. No one was there to encourage him to stay active or eat right, so he made a conscious decision to take control. He began with simple steps, starting by walking around the block each morning. Over time, as his stamina increased, he added more distance to his routine, eventually joining a local walking group. Now not only does George feel fitter and healthier, but he's also found a new circle of friends who share his commitment to staying active. For Gloria, in her early 70s, living alone became the perfect opportunity to finally address her mental health. She had spent years putting her own needs last, prioritizing work, family, and caregiving responsibilities, but with more time and space to focus on herself, she realized the importance of nurturing her emotional well-being. Monica began seeing a therapist and started practicing meditation, both of which had been neglected for decades. The result was transformative. She noticed a marked improvement in her mood, outlook, and overall sense of peace. Living alone helped Monica understand that self-care is not just a luxury. It's an essential part of living a healthy, balanced life. 10. Embracing creativity in cooking and meals. Living alone also offers a newfound freedom in the kitchen, allowing many older adults to transform cooking from a daily chore into a joyful and creative outlet. Without the need to cater to anyone else's preferences, the kitchen becomes a space of personal expression. Susan, a woman in her mid-60s, shared her culinary adventures after moving into her own place. With no one else to cook for, she began experimenting with new cuisines, ingredients, and flavors she had never tried before. What started as a necessity quickly became one of her favorite activities. She now looks forward to planning her meals each week, treating cooking as a form of creative exploration. Sarah, a 72-year-old widower, took a different approach. For him, living alone offered the opportunity to simplify his meals, making them easy yet nutritious. Frank created a weekly menu of simple, healthy dishes that required minimal effort to prepare. This routine not only helped him eat well, but also brought him peace of mind, knowing that his meals were planned, nutritious, and stress-free. What once felt like a tedious obligation had become a comforting part of his daily rhythm, something he genuinely looked forward to at the end of each day. Living alone in old age is not about isolation, it's about embracing freedom. It's a time to rediscover who you are, to explore new hobbies, reconnect with yourself, and create a life that reflects your true desires. The solitude offers you the space to grow, thrive, and enjoy life at your own pace. Whether it's through rekindling old passions, learning new skills, or simply relishing the quiet moments, this chapter of life is yours to shape exactly how you want it. So embrace this journey, celebrate your independence, and remember, it's never too late to live the life you've always dreamed of. Feel free to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below, And if this video resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.